Welcome back, everyone. It is almost time for Meet the Press here on NBC here in Colorado. Ahead of the show this morning, we have Chuck Todd joining us to answer a couple of questions. Chuck, always good to see you.
Good morning, Anusha.
Hey, wanted to start with COVID, right? I mean, we've seen so many ebbs and flow with, some people feeling relief from COVID earlier this summer, and then obviously Delta kind of threw a wrench in everything, right, especially in the last couple of months. We know that there's been a lot of polarizing conversations across the country over the response to the pandemic. How has that actually translated to tangible impacts on our progress?
Well, I would say it has certainly contributed to our lack of progress, I think is the bottom line. I mean, I have two governors on today who are sort of interesting mirror images of each other. You have a Republican governor and Larry Hogan of Maryland with a very blue state, has a Democratic supermajority in his legislature. I have a Democratic governor, Andy Beshear of Kentucky, a very red state, a Republican supermajority in there. And in some ways, it's interesting. Governor Hogan being a Republican, he's got a state with a high vaccination rate, but 2/3 of the electorate is Democratic, and we've seen such a party line divide on vaccines. Meanwhile, Andy Beshear, who's certainly been tried to be aggressive, his Republican legislature took powers away from him to prevent him from issuing mask mandates. So it's our polarization that has clearly gotten in the way of our ability to I guess, at least mitigate this surge. The Delta surge sadly was going to happen probably no matter what, but it is mostly targeting the unvaccinated. If we had more people vaccinated, we'd certainly still have unvaccinated in the hospitals. We wouldn't have as many unvaccinated. So that's what we're trying to deal with. It's obviously polarization, I would argue, is probably a more vicious virus right now for the American people than COVID itself, because the polarization has prevented us from thinking clearly on COVID.
Yeah, I mean, because doctors had been talking about Delta for months before it took over, warning people about it. We've also seen a lot of debate over Texas' new abortion law, and the president has talked about stepping in. But what can he do, and how much impact could it actually have?
Look, there's not much that can be done by the Biden administration. I do think you'll see Democrats in Congress put a bill on the floor of the House, and perhaps it gets introduced in the Senate to essentially codify the Roe v. Wade, essentially try to pass federal legislation that would protect, create a federal right to get an abortion. But it's unlikely to get through the Senate due to the filibuster, and it's unclear whether there would even be 50 Democratic votes. You might get a couple of Republicans to cross over, but you might lose a couple of Democrats. There was a time that the abortion issue was a little more, there was ideological diversity within the two parties on it, less and less of that now. But look, there's not much that can be done there. This is really going to translate into a political fight. Because if Roe v. Wade goes away or gets curtailed the way the Supreme Court appears likely to do, it puts more emphasis on every state-based law. And it means that we're going to have, I think, everybody's abortion position is going to be front and center if you're running for office, whether it's state rep, state senate, U.S. Congress, presidency, you name it. And I think that's going to animate a lot of political debates. And right now, that appears to be something that would be advantage Democrats.
Yeah, and we're definitely seeing a lot of elected officials in Colorado starting to weigh in as well. Thanks so much for your time, Chuck. Always appreciated. You can catch Meet the Press every Sunday morning on Channel 9 right after us at 9 o'clock. We'll be right back.